Namaste. So this is Dr. Taru. I belong to Bombay and I'm a gynecologist working in the field of breastfeeding since the last about 5 to 6 years exclusively. So today we are discussing a very important topic which is very relevant to today's times. Ki how working women can manage breastfeeding along with work, and how to express milk, how to store milk, what is a milk bank. So these issues become very relevant because these days a lot of women are working as compared to earlier times. So today, to discuss this, we have an expert with us, Dr. Swati Manerkar. So she is the head of Department of Neonatology in Sion Hospital, Lokmanya Tilak Medical College in Sion, that's in Mumbai. And she's also the head of the Milk Bank in Sion Hospital, that's a regional center for the West Zone in India. So Sion had the first milk bank of Asia in 1992. And I think one biggest introduction of her is that she's my teacher. And whatever I have learned about taking care of children and kids and babies is because of Madam and because of working under her. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Taru, for inviting me. And it's such a pleasure actually to have your own students organize such things and then scale new heights. It's a very proud moment indeed. And if I can disclose here unofficially, Taru, Dr. Taru.
Ma'am, we can't hear you. Can you be a little louder?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Just speak a little loudly. Yes.
I'll speak directly to the mic. So, if I can take a privilege of disclosing this news here on this forum that Dr. Taru has been awarded the Mumbai Breastfeeding Promotion Committee Young Achiever Award for 2020, and heartiest congratulations to her and best wishes with her to keep up the good work that she's doing in this field. So, I would like to start off with a small presentation so that I think a lot of queries would get solved by looking at the slides, and then if there are any, we can take them up as a discussion.
Sure, ma'am. Sure. Ma'am, your voice is still a little muffled. If you could speak a little louder or come closer to the laptop, because I think your phone is not.
Am I audible now? Am I audible now?
But you have to speak loudly.
Okay, I'll try and speak louder. Just tell me if this is fine.
Yes, this is fine. This is
okay. So I've been associated with the Department of Neonatology at Sion Hospital since 2008, and I've also been working with the Human Milk Bank here at Sion Hospital ever since. And over the last so many years, I've seen the sphere of breastfeeding as well as milk banking shaping up very well. There's been a lot of advocacy about breastfeeding, and people are really convinced about the importance of feeding their babies their own milk or exclusive human milk feeding. So we are actually now moving to the next level.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, I have to stop you for a second. Your voice is not clear, ma'am, so we're not able to hear clearly. So maybe.
Am I audible better now?
Yes, you please speak directly into your laptop.
Am I audible better?
Yes, yes, now it's fine.
So I'll stop speaking into the mic.
Yes, yes.
And I'll directly speak into the microphone of the laptop. Okay.
Yes, sure.
So there we go. The discussion for today is breastfeeding for working women and a little introduction to human milk banking. So we all know the benefits of breastfeeding are so many. I think the entire group which is expected to join us is reasonably convinced about the benefits, which is why we are here on a common platform. We know it's good for the baby, we know it's good for the mother, and it's not only short-term benefits in terms of nutrition and immunity, but it's also long-term benefits in terms of prevention and protection from lifestyle disorders like obesity, diabetes, etc. For the mom, it's a long-term investment in terms of decreasing the risk of cancers, decreasing the risk of type 2 diabetes, osteoporosis, etc. Uh, so much and so forth. We understand that breastfeeding is not something which the mother can do single-handedly. It requires a lot of support from family, and it requires a lot of support from the society. So in 2015, the entire campaign of the World Breastfeeding Week focused on working women and how we could empower them to continue breastfeeding as well as continue working. So this is a little bit of guidance about how mothers can continue to breastfeed, how they can express their milk, store their milk, transport their milk during the period that they get back to work and are away from their babies. So why does a mother need to express milk? She could be expressing for her own baby as a fresh mother's milk which is to be fed, or she may be expressing it for her baby to save for use at a later date. She may be expressing because she's interested in donating her extra milk to the milk bank, and where we would also need to look at long-term storage for such milk. So when the mother needs to express milk for her own baby, the final ultimate goal is to directly breastfeed. But there might be certain hurdles, like the baby is sick or the baby and the mother are separated for some illness. And it's a temporary measure where the mother expresses her milk and feeds it to the baby, not directly by latching the baby to the breast, but by giving vati spoon feeds. Or the nurse feeds it with a tube, or the baby gets a syringe feed. So it could be a baby in the NICU, like a low birth weight baby, or a post-surgical baby, or a sick baby, or when the baby has been stopped from feeding because of a medical problem, and she is going to use this milk as a stash or a storage to use at a later date. So when we are doing it at home, because not all the time the mother and the baby require to be in the same hospital, the baby might be admitted and the mother might be home, or with the baby and mother both at home, when we are looking at the time when we are getting back to work and the mother needs to leave the house for some time, the very important aspect is cleanliness. So clean hands, clean breasts, clean collection utensils, clean equipment if she's planning to pump. Clean does not mean sterile. She could just clean it in a dishwasher or clean it with a routine soapy water, boil it and dry it. However, at no point of time are we encouraging any sort of informal milk sharing because of the risk of transmission of diseases. Most mothers do have access to milk pumps, so they could either be manual pumps or electric pumps. However, we need to understand that hand expression is as effective as a pump expression, and sometimes even more efficient than pump expression. However, mothers tend to find it comfortable to pump at times, so double pumping electric pumps are recommended because they enable higher milk production. It's easier because the pumping happens and the collection happens in a shorter duration of time. However, one needs to be very, very careful about cleaning all the parts which come in contact with the milk, including the safety valves. Sterilization of these equipments by boiling is very important. Contamination could be higher in milk which is pumped using milk pumps as compared to manual expression. Manual expression generally has a lesser risk of contamination. And discarding the first 2-3 ml of milk might decrease the bacterial load in the expressed milk. So how does a mother express milk with her hand? I think it's very important that every single mother learns this technique, whether she might need to use it, not use it, but it's imperative that every mother needs to know how to do hand expression of milk. So with after cleaning hands, we ask the mother to gently massage her breast. So it's usually a circular motion on all sides with the flat of the hand and fingers. Then we try to ask her to get the milk forward. And then as shown in the picture, she holds at the border of the areola or a little behind, presses the breast backwards and then squeezes. This technique is important, otherwise it can the mother can land up causing abrasions on her breast during expression. This is also a very good technique to get some extra milk after a pumping session. So she can squeeze her breasts a little bit and get more milk out. It's also a very good technique to get that extra hind milk out, which is more calorie dense So it can increase the calorie content of the milk which is going to be fed to the baby. Again, in country like ours, where in the smaller towns and villages where electricity is scarce, this becomes a very handy method of expressing milk. It's also quieter. You don't need to really carry a pump all over the place, and it's certainly less expensive. So very often, once the mother starts feeding from one side, this milk which starts dripping from the opposite side. So is this drip milk as good as the milk that the mom is feeding? Not really. It's much lower in the nutritional value. It's lower in calories, fat. It could be contaminated. It's definitely not suitable for donation. But yes, as an occasional tide over, if the mother wishes to collect it and keep it for her own baby, she may do that. What could we store milk in? Various companies sell pumps. They sell bottles which can be used to store the milk. They also sell disposable bags which can be used to store this milk. But these are all BPA free. Food grade plastic, Pyrex, polypropylene, or even our simple steel containers which are present in every household, which are inert materials. They are also safe for storage. uh, it's always nice to store small portions so that you can get only as much milk out as would be required by the baby. If a little more is required, get one more portion out. Rather than getting a large volume, thawing it, and then having to discard it, it's better to store in small portions. It's again very important to label very clearly when the milk has been collected, and also important, especially in our milk bank, because we look at a much larger volume of milk being stored, as to when is the last date at which the milk expires. So that even if one tends to overlook the date of collection, you surely know what is the expiry date beyond which you don't want to use that milk. Also understand that color and smell of milk might change during storage. So does the nutritional content of milk and the composition of milk change during storage. It may start smelling a little acrid because fats undergo lipolysis during storage. So several expressions in the day can be combined, because mom may want to feed in the morning, then express some portion and store it. Again, feed in the afternoon, express and store. So are we allowed to combine these expressions done at different points of time in the day? Well, yes. But one needs to understand that whatever milk is getting mixed has to be collected during one 24-hour day, and whatever milk is being collected is mixed at the same temperature. So what is recommended is you express the milk in a container, put it into the fridge, not freezer. Put it into the fridge. The next time you collect milk, again put it into the fridge. Let both the aliquots come down to the same temperature. Then you may mix. And at the end of 24 hours, whatever you collect one on top of the other has to go into the freezer for freezing. You cannot keep adding beyond 24 hours, because that is going to increase the risk of contamination. So keep milk from separate days separate, label them separately, and like I said, do not add warm milk to frozen milk. It will again bring about lipolysis in the fat content. So what is our recommended temperature for storage? If the milk is going to be used in the next 6 to 8 hours on a reasonably cold day, keep it outside at room temperature. In the hot summer months, we say not more than 4 to 6 hours, especially in a city like Mumbai. If it's to be stored for 24 hours, put it in an insulated cooler bag. It can be stored for 5 days if refrigerated at 4 degrees. That is inside our fridge compartment, but store it right at the back so that temperature fluctuations are minimum. However, if it needs to be stored beyond 24 hours, it goes straight into the freezer. It can be stored for 2 weeks at minus 15 degrees, and it can be stored up to 6 to 12 months at minus 20 degrees Celsius. But these recommendations are only predominantly for mothers who are going to use their milk for their own babies. If they ever consider donation of extra milk, it needs to be stored for not more than 3 months, because if, as per the national guidelines, we can only accept milk which is less than 3 months old from a longitudinal donor. So we are good. We have collected. We have frozen the
Ma'am,
milk.
can you be a little louder? Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. So once we have collected, the next step is thawing the milk. So this is a very, very important and crucial step. First thing is oldest milk needs to be used first. Thaw the milk by placing it into the refrigerator the previous night. So over the around 12 hours or more, it starts becoming more liquid. And then put it into a bowl of warm water so that it warms gently. Thawed milk should never go back into the refrigerator. Once it's thawed, use it within 2 hours, throw it. If whatever remains, just throw it off. Never stir the milk with a stirrer or a spoon, just swirl the container. And that's why it's best to have smaller aliquots. Whatever is needed, just get that much out and you're sorted. So we come to what do working mothers need to do for maintaining a supply. I've already spoken about how they can express and store. So the most important tip is always latch the baby whenever you're with the baby. So before going to work, after coming back from work, then as many times as the baby wants to latch, as many times in the night, nurse before after work, try and express milk at work so that the length of time in between expressions does not exceed 4 to 6 hours. Extra expression is recommended on holidays so that the breast remains stimulated. Nurse frequently at night, eat well, and there is something which is called as power pumping, which can help the mother boost up her supply. So power pumping basically is a technique where we would recommend cycles of pumping, resting, and pumping so that the breast gets maximum stimulation. It may not translate into an increased collection at that very point of time. But power pumping cycles done over 2 to 3 days will definitely lead to an increased output eventually because you're tricking the mother's body to feel that the baby has an increased demand. And milk supply is always a demand supply chain. If the baby suckles more, the mother makes more milk. If the baby suckles less, the mother makes less milk. So the power pumping is to help the body probably feel that yes, there is a need for making more milk. So the cycle typically goes as 20 minutes of pumping where most of the milk gets expressed, rest for 10 minutes, pump again 10 minutes where you may not be able to express much but it's a stimulation, rest again for 10 minutes, pump again 10 minutes where you may get some more milk into the collection bottle. So this is a 1 hour cycle which is recommended to be repeated several times during holidays. Now we come to human milk banking and what happens with collection, storage, and feeding of sick and premature babies in the NICU. So this is like expression and storage and processing happening at a very large scale. So we understand that breastfeeding rates are still very low. The best rates that have been reported are around 60% in the country. And there's still a good proportion of babies who do not have access to their own mother's milk. So the next best which we can give them is a very species specific donor human milk. So milk from another mother. So wet nursing basically is not a unknown concept for us. We know Lord Krishna has been wet nursed by Yashoda Maya. So for the Indian culture and Indian mythology, this always existed. But can we actually replicate that today? Not in the exact same way because of fear of transmission of diseases. But yes, by milk banking, we are probably replicating the same model even today. So we established the first milk bank in India on 27th November 1989 and we've completed 30 years here at Sion Hospital. And over a period of time, slowly and steadily, we now have over 70 human milk banks in the country and the number is rising. So there's a whole very well-defined process and I'm going to run through this quickly as to how we recruit mothers as donors, what we do with their milk, and then finally it reaches the beneficiaries, which is the small preterm babies in the NICU. And there's a lot of importance which is given to safety at every point during this process of milk banking. So we start with who can donate. So any healthy mother can donate if she's willing to and if she's making enough milk for her own baby and she wishes to donate the excess milk to another needy baby. But she needs to be free of any acute illnesses. She should not be on any drugs contraindicated for breastfeeding. She should not have received any blood products in the last 12 months, and she should not be using any drugs of abuse. Her blood tests need to be negative for HIV, hepatitis B, and BBRL. The other tests are mandatory in the Western countries, but they are not mandatory in India. She needs to give a written informed consent that she is willing to donate her milk, and she needs to understand that it's her responsibility that she maintains the safety and quality of the milk which she is donating. She must understand that none of this milk is going to be given back to her, nor will she receive any form of compensation for the donation. And we need to retain these consent forms for later. Expression in a hospital based environment is always more comfortable with a hospital grade electric breast pump, where both breasts are pumped simultaneously to reduce the time as well as to improve the volume that is collected. However, if the mother wishes to express her breast milk and donate it, that is also perfectly fine. Benefits, it's good for the mom because it helps her relieve engorgement. It helps her maintain her production during the time when her baby is unable to feed her own milk. It also helps her improve her output if she is breastfeeding her baby simultaneously. Labeling is very, very important. So there's a lot of importance that we give to labeling each container when it gets collected. It is transported to the processing area in a cold chain. So this milk, once collected, goes into the fridge. From the fridge in the collection area, it comes to the milk bank in an ice box. In some places where the collection and processing areas are next to each other, it just moves into the raw milk storage section of the milk bank. We need to be very important that there is no contamination that is introduced, so all processes are done in a very clean manner. And this milk can then be processed immediately, or it can be frozen if the processing is not going to happen within the next 24 hours. So we shift this milk to the refrigerator or freezer depending on when we plan to process it, and it is thawed only before it is going to undergo pasteurization. Never use a microwave to thaw donor milk because microwave causes small areas of heat pockets, and those can actually damage the constitution and composition of milk. So in a milk bank, what happens is here in India, what we follow is milk from 3 to 5 different mothers. So each one could have donated a different volume. Someone donates 100 ml, someone donates 120 ml, 150 ml. It gets pooled into one lot because we follow a very cross-sectional type of collection here in public hospitals. We really rarely have longitudinal donors, but since the awareness is increasing now, last year we've had 60 mothers who have donated longitudinally. So they have sent us anywhere between 1 to 5 liters of milk over a 1 year period. So the milk gets pulled into a glass, borosilicate glass flask, and it's screened for any contamination, and we send a sample for any bacterial contamination. It's then put into smaller aliquots which enter the pasteurization machine, and we use a holder method of pasteurization, so it gets sterilized for 30 minutes at 62.5 degrees Celsius, followed by a rapid cooling. This gives a heat shock to the bacteria and further decreases the bacterial count. After pasteurization, again the milk is checked for any microbial contamination, and it goes into a separate freezer. It will be issued for use in the neonatal intensive care only once we have a negative contamination report. Again, here the labeling is very important because date of collection is written, date of pasteurization and date of expiry is written. In the milk bank, we can store milk at minus 20 degrees Celsius for not more than 6 months. It has to be used before 6 months. Contamination, if it's not acceptable levels, pre or post pasteurization, we would discard the entire lot which gets mixed. This is a chart showing the temperatures at which milk is maintained during different steps of milk banking. So at room temperature for about 3 to 4 hours, 4 degrees for 24 hours, minus 20. If it's raw milk, we can keep it for 3 months. If it's processed milk, for 6 months. And then in the pasteurizer, whatever temperature control that it requires. Now, who receives this milk which is undergoing all these processes? So, the most vulnerable babies need to be fed mother's milk, because we all understand that this is one intervention which is going to save many, many, many lives. So, premature babies, low birth weight babies, babies who don't have access to their own mother's milk, either because the mother has a contraindication to feeding, or she is very sick because of any obstetric complications, medical complications, or she's unfortunately died, or those mothers who have unfortunately stopped making milk. So these are predominantly the babies who get fed donor human milk. Again, the same principle is followed, first in, first out. So the oldest milk will be dispensed first, and the newest milk will be dispensed last. It is given to the babies only and only on prescription. So it will not be fed to a baby if he does not fit into the criteria which are set in a particular unit to be fed donor milk. Again, during dispensing and feeding, temperature control is very, very important. So it's transported to the intensive care in a cold chain, frozen in the intensive care, and thawed only when it's time to feed the baby. This is a visual representation of the whole process, where it starts with mother screening, registration, consent, expression, then transportation to the milk bank in ice boxes, processing in a biosafety cabinet, then cooling it, pre-pasteurization testing, pasteurization, post-pasteurization testing, freezing in the milk bank freezers, where the different milks get stored separately. Raw milk is stored separately, uh, report awaited milk is stored separately, and the clean milk, where we know definitely that there is no contamination, gets stored separately. It's prescribed by the doctor to the vulnerable baby in the NICU, and then it is fed to the baby either by the nurse or by the mother in the manner in which the baby can take the food. So that's milk banking in a nutshell, and I think we could take questions now if there are any.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. That was quite comprehensive. And I was getting nostalgic looking at those milk bank pictures from Sion.
It's much different than what it used to be earlier. It's
Yes.
undergone a complete change.
But yes, you all have pioneered this work of milk banking in India, and I'm so glad and fortunate to have worked in Science Milk Bank. So I have a few questions, ma'am, although you have covered almost everything. So you said
Yeah.
one of the steps during hand expression of milk was clean hands and clean breasts. So I understood that we have to clean hands. But do we also have to wash our breasts with soap and water before expression of milk?
So one clean bath in the day is enough. If the mom is doing it for her own baby, here in a hospital setting, one clean bath, and if needed, we would just make the mother wash her breast with tap water, just to ensure that we are reducing the contamination, if at all there's going to be any. But it is definitely not recommended that the mother uses soap and water every now and then to clean her breasts, because it will lead to a lot of nipple dryness, sore nipples, cracked nipples. So one clean bath is good if it's happening for her own baby. And in the hospital setting, we might need to be a little more careful, because it's going to somebody else's baby. It will go through storage, transport, just to be a little safe.
Okay. Ma'am, next question is, you said something about milk sharing. So there are a lot of mothers who say that now there are support groups, mother support groups. So in that also I keep reading, if someone is suffering with low milk supply, some other mother offers on Facebook or online that I will share milk with you, or I will send milk to you. So is this kind of milk sharing okay, and we can allow it?
Uh, One needs to understand the risks of informal milk sharing, because see, there is we though the mother might be tested for diseases which might get transmitted through milk, the window period always remains. So we never know whether the mother is truly negative if she has been tested in the window period. That's one thing.
Ma'am, can
Secondly,
you
we
please
are
explain the window period, because most of the mothers will not know window
yeah.
period.
So in viral illnesses like HIV, there is after contracting the illness or infection, there's a period of about 6 months minimum where you may test negative though you have the virus inside your body. So that becomes a very risky situation because transmission through breast milk is known, though the risk is low, but it's still known. Secondly, there are other viruses, especially like cytomegalovirus, for which we never test in India because the prevalence is very high. This virus can wreak havoc if you feed a preterm baby with milk which is infected with cytomegalovirus, and the baby can land up having lots of complications. There could be certain other viruses known and unknown which might be getting transmitted. We are not probably aware of all of those. And fourthly, the legality of sharing milk informally can be challenging at times. So when we are getting the milk through a milk bank, we ensure that the processes of testing for bacterial contamination, which is not which is not something that we are even talking about during informal milk sharing because there's no testing happening.
Yeah,
So
right.
whether the mother has a heavy bacterial load, we do not know what's going to happen if this mother's milk might be fine for her own baby because she has given him the antibody. But we don't know if some other mother's baby is going to tolerate the milk which has a very high bacterial contamination. Leave apart the fact that if the milk is heavily contaminated, the quality of milk is also getting poorer,
Yeah.
which is why we do not even accept pre-pasteurization contamination. We'll throw the milk even if all the germs have been killed and we have a clean sample after processing. We throw it off if it was contaminated in the beginning. So having this uh, uh, not knowing what is getting transmitted is a huge risk. And even if there is some sort of a consent which takes place, it's not yet legal in our country that we do informal milk sharing. So I
Okay.
would definitely not recommend informal milk sharing. I understand there is a lot of issue with mothers having lactation failure, but then I think the awareness about meeting a lactation consultant or counselor and trying to pump up your own volume is something which mothers need to look at. uh, in due course of time, as awareness increases, I feel eventually we might reach a point in time where we have so much milk banked in milk banks that we'll be able to offer it to children in the community where mothers are having problems. As of now, awareness is limited, donors are limited, volumes are limited, so it's a resource which can be used only for the most vulnerable babies.
Uh, Ma'am, one more question is, so you said sharing of milk should be avoided like this, but what about sharing of breast pumps? Can a mother who has used a breast pump and when she is done weaning, can she share it with somebody else?
Again, contamination is a big risk here because there is no testing which goes on in between sharing pumps. So I would say that if you can afford, please buy a new pump.
So if we boil the pump and then the other person uses it?
Uh, we have not tested. I mean, I cannot definitely say that with conviction that yes, it's clean and completely free of microorganisms. If you
Hmm.
can, I would still say if you can afford, go ahead with new equipment.
Okay.
Generally what gets comes in contact with the milk is the removable parts, right? not
Yeah.
not the machine. So the machine can probably be retained, but at least the parts need to be new so that
Yeah.
they're not exposed to some other flora.
And they are not very costly if you just buy the
They're
parts.
not very costly, exactly,
Yes.
they're not costly. And if there are cost concerns, I would recommend please learn the hand expression because it's cheap
Hmm.
and it's as effective or sometimes even more effective if it's done correctly.
Right. Ma'am, what would be the difference between an electric pump and a hand pump if a mother has to make a choice? And single-sided or double-sided? How does she make the choice
Okay.
between these four?
So, single-sided, double-sided definitely is better than single-sided because you're stimulating both the breasts at the same time. So it translates into a better stimulation and better output. So your collection definitely is better. Cost is different between the two in electric and manual, but if it means choosing between a manual single-sided pump versus a manual versus an electric single-sided, it's just a lot of, it's quite laborious trying to get it to a manual pump. Otherwise, it doesn't really, the mechanics, I don't think really make so much of a difference.
Okay.
What is concerning and important is see to it that everything is clean. So clean it, wash it, and allow it to dry completely. Wherever there is moisture, there's a very high possibility that contamination has been introduced. So allow all parts to dry before you use it for the next pumping session. But
Okay.
advantage in terms of getting a good output and stimulation, bilateral electric is definitely better than the others.
Okay. Ma'am, what about the quality of the breast milk? Just today, a mother asked me this, कि if I store my milk in the freezer and use it after, let's say, 2 months, 3 months, so what is the quality of that milk as compared to the fresh milk? And especially the milk that is coming from milk banks, which may have been stored maybe long back.
See, we need to understand one thing that when we are talking about milk banking, we are certainly not providing the best that the baby can get, which is mother's own milk fresh. There are going to be nutrient losses of a lot of immunological factors during processing, storage, and subsequent handling. So we are definitely not giving the baby the best from a milk bank, but yes, it is much, much, much better than feeding the baby cow's milk or
Yeah.
feeding the baby formula. So we are still giving the baby species specific milk with say roughly about 80% of the quality of fresh milk retained. Now, if the mom is thinking of all these things for her own milk, if she is going to directly feed the baby at the breast, you can't have anything better than that.
Yeah.
Because it is not just milk, it's a lot more skin to skin contact, it's a lot more hormonal interplay that is going on between the mother and the baby. But yes, there are conditions when that is not possible, and expression and then feeding the baby expressed milk becomes mandatory. So even during short durations of storage, the vitamin C content can drop quite dramatically. Depending on the container material, glass. Say if you're using a glass container, the cells in the milk, we understand that milk is a living tissue. It has a lot of living cells. The cells can adhere to the sides of the container, and what you feed to the baby is going to be without the cells which have adhered to the container. Then putting it into the refrigerator or putting it into a freezer for storage is also going to bring about a drop in the cell count, a drop in the immunoglobulin content, and a little drop in the fat and protein content of milk, which is also what happens when we are pasteurizing it here in the milk tank. None of the live immunity is going to the baby. So all the cells are destroyed when you store it or you pasteurize it. You're giving the baby almost 80% of the immunoglobulins which are present in milk, and you're also giving the baby a little lesser calories and a little less of fats from stored milk or processed milk. So your best is feed at the breast. Second best is express and feed fresh. And then if there is a need, store it and then feed it or process it and then feed it.
So, ma'am, I have a question about the community. Can a mother from community who has a lot of milk donate to a milk bank, say at Sion Hospital? And the second question is, can a mother from the community who has low supply ask for milk from a milk bank like Sion Hospital?
Okay, so I'm going to take the bad question first. That can a mother ask for milk? See what happens here in our milk bank. I can talk about most of the milk banks which are attached to a tertiary level NICU. Your supply, which comes in from donor mothers, is about 3.5, 4 liters in a day. Because as of now, we don't have as many longitudinal donors who are willing to send liters and liters of milk. The demand in the neonatal unit is also around anywhere between 2 to 4 liters in a day. So there's very little surplus which remains, which can be offered to anyone else. Again, if you were to offer it outside, you can't do it by compromising babies in your own hospital. They become your primary responsibility. There have been rare occasions where we have given small volumes of milk to other hospitals where babies were very preterm, 1 kilo, 1.2 kilo. But then sustaining that is very difficult because we are ourselves in a very tight demand supply situation. Thirdly, if we are looking at giving this milk to a healthy term baby, well, are we going to really be able to provide the baby so much milk for all the duration that the baby needs mother's milk? It's not going to be possible because that would be and liters of milk for one single baby who is not really classified as vulnerable as per our definitions. So, as of now, this is a very difficult situation. But yes, I'm hopeful that if awareness keeps increasing and after the COVID era, when things normalize and we have more and more mothers wanting to donate milk longitudinally, we really have a huge collection here, a huge surplus here. Why not? Most certainly.
So I think what you're saying is right now we are keeping the milk for vulnerable babies. So if the donation increases, then we might be able to share it.
We might be able to, yes, with the bigger babies, with babies in the community. Coming to who can donate. So any healthy mother can donate. Um, uh, she might want to start thinking about it right from her antenatal period, like what happens in the West, where they commit to donating to a milk bank and then we run through their reports. We ensure that the mom has understood what is her responsibility towards expressing and storing milk. Then she collects milk at home. She stores it in the containers that she finds suitable. So far, we don't have the budgets in the public sector to provide disposable bags. So most of the mothers have spent from their own pockets for collecting milk for donation. And then at a particular point in time, when she has a good volume, 1.5, 2 liters collected, not more than 3 months old, we arrange for a pickup. So some person from our milk bank goes to the mother's residence with an ID card, with a consent form. She signs the consent form. She puts all the milk into the ice box, which is being carried by the milk bank person, and then he gets it back. We've already been in communication with her about her reports and her willingness to donate, etc. But so far, it's happening as a very one-to-one, one-off mother who contacts us, and then the whole process starts.
So you said last year there were 60 mothers who donated milk to the milk bank. So that is a very good news. I think it has to be spread and others can do it. So you said about COVID, ma'am. So I want to know during the COVID era, has the milk collection been affected? I mean, what you collect now, are you scared of collecting milk from everyone and then pooling it together?
We are not scared, but yes, guidelines have changed for the milk bank. For for a COVID positive mother and her healthy newborn, she still continues to breastfeed, but she wears a mask. She maintains hand hygiene. She tries to keep the baby 2 meters away from her if possible, but where it's not possible, fine, you can keep the mother and baby in the same bed. But as far as donors are concerned, if the mom has tested COVID positive, she's a strict no-no for collection in the hospital. She needs to test negative before we can enroll her as a donor. For others who may not have undergone the test, since testing strategies have been quite erratic actually, they've been changing guidelines very often. So for us in the milk bank, recruiting donors would be any mother who is healthy, who has not had any influenza-like illness, so no fever, no cough, cold, myalgia, symptoms which might suggest COVID, no history of contact with a symptomatic person or a lab-tested person, and is healthy feeding her own baby. Then, and if at all she has been tested, she tests negative, then she can be recruited as a donor. Longitudinal donation has virtually stopped during the pandemic. One, because we do not know about asymptomatic carriers. We do not know about the safety of sending our staff to their homes for collection, how comfortable they would be interacting with staff from the hospital, because people are scared of healthcare professionals now. So longitudinal donation has virtually stopped, but yes, cross-sectional collection has been affected because the eligible donors are lesser than what we used to have in the past.
So I have just last two questions left, ma'am. So if a mother who is working in an office and she pumps milk there maybe twice in a period of 6 to 7 to 8 hours, so she collects that milk and stores it in the fridge in her office. So should she put it in the fridge or the freezer? That's the first question. The second question is, how does she transport that milk from the office to her home? And third question is, in the home, where does she put it? In the fridge or
Okay.
the freezer? And how
So
fast does when she, matlab, by when she should consume it? So there are four questions
okay.
about this.
So I think mom who wishes to pump at workplace, she needs to ensure that there's a dedicated fridge for her to keep her milk, because I'm sure most mothers who would want to pump at workplace are not going to be working for 2 hours and 4 hours. If if they're going to be working for that short a duration, they might as well feed the baby before going to work and coming back. There's no sense trying to go through the pumping and all the mess at workplace. But I think most of us would be spending about 8 hours at workplace plus the travel time. So there needs to be a small dedicated fridge where milk can be safely placed, which is not getting handled by too many others and which does not contain other items, which can lead to contamination. She needs to carry a small carrier, ice box. There are small carriers available in the market. The small vaccine ice boxes. So you put um, ice ice packs inside, and you can get the milk out of the fridge, put it on the ice pack, and get it home at a reasonably cold temperature. If she plans to feed it within 24 hours, it can stay in the fridge because we have collected it about 4 to 6 hours back, so we don't want to leave it at room temperature. So it goes into the fridge. But again, I would still recommend that instead of putting it into the fridge, if she's not certain whether it is going to be used in the next 24 hours, it better be frozen, brought out and thawed whenever she plans to feed. Once home, try and feed at the breast. Once home, let the baby stimulate the breast, let the baby give you all the stimulus, and let there be that extra bond which probably works much better than the pump. Have I covered all the questions?
Yes, you have, ma'am. Last question is, when the mother is at work, how do we suggest the milk, that is the express milk at home, to be fed to the baby, either by the creche person or by the dadi or nani? How do we feed? Is it with a bondla or a spoon or a cup or a bottle?
Okay, bottle is out entirely, if you ask me, because I might be biased because I work in the public sector, but we've seen really horrid cases of gastroenteritis when babies start getting bottle fed. Also, is the problem that there'll be a nipple confusion if the baby gets fed with a bottle during some part of the day and then at the breast during the other part of the day. So best would be a party spoon or a bondla, whatever the caretaker is comfortable with. Yes. Or then you also get what is called as a nifty cup, which can give you a very regulated flow of milk. Again, a spoon and vati is also good enough, but it's very crucial that the caretaker is educated about how to handle this milk, because it is not going to be handled like cow's milk. You can't get it out of the fridge, put it on the gas, put it in the microwave, boil it, and feed it to the baby. Handling has to be very clear, that milk has to be thawed by placing it in a bowl of warm water, swirling it, bring it to room temperature, and then feed it. Once it is brought to room temperature, it needs to be consumed within 2 hours. If it stays out for 2 hours, just throw it. It cannot go back into the fridge. It cannot be kept for a future feed, because the risk of contamination goes really high.
So, I think we have finished all our questions. I don't think any mother will have any more question after this. Your session was simply brilliant, and I'm very fortunate that you gave your time to all of us. Thanks a lot, ma'am. Really value it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Even I
Thank you, ma'am.
enjoyed it. It's
Thank
it's
you.
really nice to be able to reach out to so many mothers and address their queries. It's a very nice feeling. Thank you so much,
Yes,
Taru.
and most of the time, mothers don't get to connect to people who are doing so much work in milk banks and such big hospitals. So I think this will be a very nice session for them. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Uh, Thank you. So now we have completed part one of our session with Dr. Swati Manerkar, who is the head of the milk bank and the neonatology department in Sion Hospital, Mumbai. The part two of our session is also very special because we have a mother with us. Her name is Priyaja. And she is a living example of all that Swati ma'am has spoken till now. uh, Priyaja is a breastfeeding mother of a 2.5-year-old baby, and she's still breastfeeding, which is amazing. And she has been working and breastfeeding her baby both together. She has done the storing and transport and everything that we have just discussed. So she will be interviewed by Mrs. Shilpi Malhotra, who is my colleague and a lactation consultant in Navi Mumbai. So over to you, Shilpi, and you can go ahead. Thanks.
Thank you, Taru ma'am. And thanks a lot, Swati ma'am, for your precious insights for storing, expressing, as well as making a small milk bank at home also. This will give very nice information to all the mothers who are fearful of starting to work um, post breastfeeding or during the breastfeeding time. So, and this is actually now I will like to introduce all
Just
of you.
1 second, Shilpi and Priyaja, I would request you to speak a little loudly, so that
Okay.
it's more clear to the listener.
Okay, okay. Now am I audible? Now it's
Yes,
nice,
yes,
fine.
it's fine. It's fine. You can start.
Okay. So I'll be introducing Mother Priyaja to all of you, who is breastfeeding from day one. So initially, yes, initial 1 week was a roller coaster ride for her, as usual. As this happens with almost all the mothers, but she didn't lost her hope, and she tried her level best to feed. And after 2.5 years of giving birth, she's still breastfeeding. So Priyaja, I invite you to share your breastfeeding journey first. So what happened during the first 6 months and later on also? So over to you, Priyaja.
Thank you, Shilpi, Dr. Taru, and Dr. Swati for giving me this opportunity. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes. So, my pregnancy and the breastfeeding journey was marvelous. I really learned a lot. So, throughout my pregnancy, I was working, and because of which it was smooth. And I literally had a connect with the baby from the time I got pregnant because I used to talk to him. uh, he used to respond to my voice. I used to feel his bump when I was talking to him. It was beautiful. But and I also read some pregnancy and related books on how to handle the pregnancy and how to take care of the baby after he's born, which helped me a lot. But the breastfeeding is something which was totally new to me. I thought that I'll handle it like a pro. I've read some books. I've read some. I also went through some videos on breastfeeding and I met Dr. Shilpi the first day when he was born. She clearly instructed me on how to latch and what is the importance of the areola region. The baby should suck the areola region and not the nipple, and the baby will get all the nutrition if I press my breasts all over my breasts for 2 to 3 and on an interval of 2 to 3 minutes. Everything was clearly instructed to me. I thought it'll be great. It'll be a great experience and there'll not be any issues. And it was like that when I was in the hospital because Dr. Shilpi was there to guide me. But after I went home, my baby was cranky. I used to have sleepless nights, used to sleep throughout the day and used to be awake at night, which made me also cranky. And uh, his jaws were actually hurting me. I had sore nipples. Uh, I had a little bit of bleeding also, because of which I just came running back to Shilpi and asked her that what could help me. So she suggested some breastfeeding techniques, some breastfeeding positions that will be comfortable for me and the baby. And the best position that she suggested is to hold the baby, to sit erect, have a pillow behind, and have another pillow to support the baby, and hold it like this and feed the baby so that my breasts stay, it does not sag and it stays strong. And the baby will also feel comfortable when he's close to me. uh, and this thing really helped me out. within a weeks of Within a week of time, I was completely comfortable with the breastfeeding, and my baby also used to take good feed, uh, because of which Dr. Shilpi introduced me to hand expression, and she also told me about the importance of hand expression. I also implemented it at a early stage because I love walking. I love taking small breaks and going out on walks. So what I used to do is I used to express a katora of hand expressed milk. It used to be somewhere around 90 ml of milk, and my parents used to feed it to him. And I used to go for just 15 to 20 minutes walk and come back. It was great. Um, Also, just before joining the office, I had a word with Shilpi on how to actually make sure that the baby is breastfed even when I am working. So she suggested some wonderful techniques. She introduced me to hand pumps. We actually tried it out on what feels comfortable for me. How would it be for me? Uh, Also, she told me about hand expression, but there was one thing about hand expression that I faced is the milk used to spill out sometimes, which I mean, did have a lactation room in our office. I was well aware of all the facilities that is available in my hospital, but I didn't want the milk to spill out, because of which I went for a electric breast pump, which was only for single breast. Uh, so I made sure that I had a conversation with Shilpi almost every day, keep my breast milk supply at optimum level. Uh, so this was about the first 6 months of my breastfeeding journey. I exclusively breastfed him for 6 months. No other medicines, no nothing.
So, Preja, when did you plan to go back to work? So, what age baby? I mean, your baby was when you really started working again at office. So, and did you really prepare yourself for that? That means you started storing milk a little before you actually started working or something like that? Or it was just you decided one day that from tomorrow you will start going to work and it happened? Is it?
No, no, I did plan on when I'll be working. So my baby was 7 months when I had resumed working, and I actually delivered my baby in Mumbai. And I'm basically from Pune. I'm a software developer, and I knew that I had to work for minimum 8 hours a day, because of which I knew that I had to store some milk for him. I was not uh, going to introduce him to the outside milk, because of which I had a word with Shilpi just 1 month before joining back. I asked her on what is the suitable technique to breastfeed him and how the milk should be stored, what kind of breast pumps are available, what kinds of storage materials are available. Um, and I also did a little bit of research from my side. Um, so by the time he was 6 months, I went back to Pune at my in-laws' place. My mother-in-law was there to help me and guide me, and she also respected my decision of breastfeeding him when I was working, and she completely supported me. So what I would do is, just before 2 weeks of my joining, I just used to take 1 to 2 hours of break. I used to just express the breast milk using an electric breast pump and store it in BPA free bottles. I had already got a set of 6 bottles, um, and I used to use it. I wanted to get used to using electric breast pump for expressing milk, because of which I started this before joining back to work. And it was a refreshing experience for me as well, because I used to get that 2 hours of break sitting outside reading a book and chatting with friends. It was great, and I wanted to get used to that kind of setup where I'm away with my baby, because otherwise it will be a rough ride for me to get adjusted to that kind of setup. So yes.
So very nice. That means when you prepared your baby as well as your mother-in-law also to get accustomed to both of, I mean, so that they should be together. And in spite of you not being physically present over there, at least emotionally in the form of milk, you were there. So whenever the
Yes.
baby is feeling, yes, mama is required, so mother-in-law can give the milk. Very nice,
Yes.
Priyaja. One more thing is there. So how many time when you really started working? So how many times, how many hours you were out of home, and how? I mean, was it easy for your mother-in-law also to manage with the expressed breast milk, and how did she use to feed the baby? So can you please
So
tell us about that?
yes, yes, sure, sure. So my work profile is a bit demanding. When I was pregnant, I used to work 10 hours a day. But after joining back, since there is a policy in my office that returning mothers can reduce their working hours to 8 hours. Because of which I attended 8 hours of my office hours. I was outside for 8 hours, but my mother-in-law and my husband were very well prepared as to how to um, actually store those bottles. I clearly instructed my mother-in-law, and even she followed everything. She used to keep the bottles, the milk bottles that I took back to the home. She used to keep it in the freezer, and next day, just before 3 to 4 hours before giving that milk to the baby, she used to keep it outside, and she used to put it in a bowl of hot water just before giving it to him and feed it to the baby. We strictly used bondla and spoon or a katora to feed him. But on some days when he was cranky, he wouldn't, sometimes he just wouldn't take any, even a single drop of milk. At that time we used to give him milk through sipper bottle, but it was a sipper bottle. Shilpi, I remember that you clearly told me that never use nipple bottles, because that would uh, eventually result in no breastfeeding. The baby would refuse to take the breast milk. So I used sipper bottles for like on days when he was cranky, but otherwise he used to take milk using bondla. My mother-in-law was a pro at using it. Even I learned that technique through my mother-in-law. She handled him very well. um, but the joining back to work, as you said, it was an emotionally draining experience, because suddenly I have to be away from my baby for 8 hours. And my baby was also a little bit disturbed. He used to cry, he used to be cranky. Uh, but my mother-in-law handled it really well, and it was such a situation that I can't come back home, even if there was a need, because I had to complete some commitments, and I had to be back only after that. So that 1 month was difficult. But yes, then eventually meeting up my friends, my colleagues, and getting back to work, that is a great experience. That gave me confidence, and my colleagues were very supportive, my managers were supportive. And also in our office we have some policies on how, on returning mothers. So we already had a lactation room available, which was right next to our building. So uh, I could just reserve the room for myself in advance. And I it was a per day I used to express for 2 times. See, it was once in the morning, that is when I around I came to the office around 9. I used to log in around 9. So I used to express some milk around 11, and it was a 15-minute session. After that, after my lunch break, that is around 3, I used to again express some milk, and there were refrigerators available in the same room. So I used to store it in the refrigerator, and just before leaving, I used to take those milk bottles, and I had a separate bag which which helped me to store those bottles, which did not leak, which did not spill, and it was safely taken back home and immediately stored it back in the refrigerator. Um so this was about the breastfeeding, but uh, uh, within a month, so while I joined back, the first month was smooth. The breastfeeding experience, the expressing experience was smooth. But what I saw is from after 2 to 3 months, I saw that there was a reduction in the supply of milk. That is probably due to the stress, due to the increased responsibilities at work. But yes, still I continued breastfeeding him. He even though he had there was a low quantity of milk available, but he used to take that milk, and I was able to express that milk. And thanks to Shilpi's advice, that even now I'm breastfeeding him. It's been 2.5 months, 2 years and 6 months now, and I'm still breastfeeding him, and it is a wonderful experience. So I saw that traditionally, my in-laws, my parents used to tell me that you should cover your baby while breastfeeding, but I don't cover normally, because we have an eye-to-eye contact when he feeds, takes the feed. So हम एक दूसरे के आंखों में देखते हैं, and वो टाइम सिर्फ हमारा है. Nobody used to disturb us during that time, and it was great. So that is a feeling that cannot be expressed in words. It's a different kind of connect when I was breastfeeding with my baby.
Very nice, Priyaja. Glad you are still breastfeeding the baby. One thing is there, when you started working, so what happened to the feeding at night? When was you still continuing the night feeding, or baby was satisfied with the expressed milk at the night also? What was actually the protocol at that time?
Okay. So he was taking feed at night as well. So as soon as I came back from my work, he used to take some feed, and definitely he needs a feed before sleeping. So, and even during midnight, he used to wake up once or twice for he used to demand feed. I think till he was 1 years old. Yes, he was 1 year old. He used to get up at night and take feed. But after he turned one, he had a good sleep and he didn't wake up.
So that means post work also, when you were working for almost 8 to 9 hours, and within 3-4 months, everything got settled down. That baby was also
Yes,
sleeping
yes.
throughout the night, and you were also able to sleep. Otherwise, mothers usually complain that throughout the day they are working at the office, and night may they are feeding throughout the night. So it becomes quite difficult for them. But yes, I must say that your mother-in-law played a huge role into that. The support system which we always want for a mother to I mean, who can breastfeed successfully, who want their baby to be exclusively on breast milk, some support system is required, which was already there with you. Very nice. So can you share some joys about the breastfeeding, that part which you said yes, I do, you have a eye to eye contact, you still have an eye to eye contact with the baby? So what right now, I mean, that time when you started working, so what was your joy? Yes, you are returned back home and then you're breastfeeding the baby, or you used to feel tired, oh my goodness, I'm back home after a long day's work and still I need to breastfeed? What was your experience at that
No.
time?
So it was after I'm back home, I was so happy that that I'll be meeting my baby, I'll be breastfeeding him, because I really missed him when I was away. Literally, I used to check the time again and again just before leaving. Just so I used to return back home by 6. So from 5 o'clock onwards, I used to check the clock. When is it going to be 6, and when I can see my baby, when I can breastfeed him, when I can spend some quality time with him. So I missed him a lot. It was a great experience coming back home, and he was also a very adjustable son, I must say. When I am back home, he didn't used to trouble me that much. He demands my time. He wants my time. He wants, that time where I am with him and nothing else. And I made one thing sure that he should sleep on time. So when I'm back home, we have our dinner, I breastfeed him, and he goes back to sleep by 9. Only then I
So
can
it's
have
a,
some me time.
so it's a nice. You are playing a nice example to all the Swati ma'am. It was a
Yes.
very nice. When I have. When was I was studying lactation and everything, the books, the theoretical